Hi, everybody. James Escarcega, Freddie Robledo, and we're going to talk about what I think could be the game of the century. Now, when we
Take
say
my
game of
glasses
the
off for this one.
century,
No, I no,
yeah, you
I can't
should.
see you.
You should. Yeah, put your glasses on, buddy. So, game of the century. We go back to Oklahoma and Nebraska back in 1970. Things of that sort. For some of us, the game of the century, could have been last week's Fresno State versus UCLA game, but we're not going to talk about that. Just
I
kind of
thought
put
it
that.
was a Stanford USC game to me, James. That was the game of the century for me.
I'm sure it was. That's great.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we go, Freddie. Let's get right into it. It's Damien at Bishop Amat, identical records, nearly identical Cal Preps power ratings. There's not really much separating.
19 and 22, right? 19 Damien, 22 Bishop Amat.
Correct. And Freddie, I just don't. I think the hype for this game is going to be outstanding, but I also do believe that the game is going to live up to the hype.
Yeah, well, let's just throw some statistical things out there, James. Bishop Amat is 23-4-1 in this series, but they haven't met since 2011. That last win was an Amat win, 28-7. Amat had won 4 games in a row. They played four straight games. They won 4 in a row. The last time that Damien beat them was 2002. That was when a guy named Ian Johnson was on the team. And we remember Ian Johnson, the Boise State game, the one that went viral before things went viral on ESPN, the great touchdown to win the bowl game. It's been that long, 19 years since Damien has beaten Amat. And that's Damien is chasing that history. Damien wants to be what Bishop Amat has been, throughout the history in the San Gabriel Valley. And that's why Mac Bechtel left South Hills, left a championship run. He went to Damien to build it back. No one has been able to really build it back or build it up at Damien. He has them knocking on the doorstep, James. And they're 2-2, and just like Amat, they're playing guys. They're playing teams. Now, granted, Bishop Amat's losses have come to St. John Bosco and Servite, but Damien's losses have been real close competitive games to Loyola and Orange Lutheran from the Trinity League. So make of that what you want. These teams were supposed to meet in the spring, right? And there's a lot of questions on why that game didn't happen, why Bishop Amat didn't want to play them. I think, your story today that ran, and this is the Saturday morning rewind, where you talked to St. Paul. They're 4-0 right now. You talked to Coach Zepeda, right? Mm-hmm. And he had been, and they took it on the chin more than anyone in the spring, except for Bishop Amat, maybe, who went 1-4. And Zepeda was talking about, it was really hard with club football players, James, coming in and out and building that chemistry. And it was just a season that gave him headaches. I want to say the same thing was happening with Bishop Amat. Look, Damien was one of those teams who was into the club football scene. They were rolling. They wanted to play Bishop Amat in the spring. They had that big head start. They went under the pseudo name and played some club games down wherever they played those games. So they really wanted Bishop Amat. And I think they would have beaten Bishop Amat had they played him in the spring, because like St. Paul, Bishop Amat just wasn't ready. I don't think they had prepared for the spring like other teams have been preparing through the winter, continuing to practice through the pandemic, whatever. But now both teams have had their full summer camp. Both teams have 4 games underneath them. They've had the normal time to prepare. This is the time they should be playing, James. This is really a pick'em game. I think you put the Cal Preps projection out there, and it was really close. Bishop Amat victory in the Cal Preps projection.
3.
It is really hard to really pick this game with any kind of. You can't really be too convincing with a game like this, because it can go either way. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Both teams have shown enough in the games that they've won. Throw out Bosco and Servite for Bishop Amat, because they beat Damien by the same way. But in the games they've won, Bishop Amat against Louisiana, against La Habra, Damien, the way they beat St. Francis, the way they beat Oaks Christian last week, their competitive losses. Man, this could be a super game, James. Just a super game.
Steve Haggerty trying to call you there, pal? Trying to give.
I wish that was Steve Haggerty or Matt Bechtel. But we're going to get a hold of them, because we need to talk to them this week. We need to go over this game. Look, and in terms of area intrigue, I've been here over 20 years. there's obviously playoff games that are big and they stand alone on their own merit. But when you talk about regular season games, the biggest one I can compare this to is when Charter Oak, when they had Travis Santiago, and they had a team that they really thought could beat Bishop Amat back in around 2010 and 11, and Bishop Amat went there and smoked them. That was the streaker game. So my 20 years, I've seen all these teams want to challenge Bishop Amat when Bishop Amat was good, when they were bad or indifferent, whether it was West Covina, whether it was Diamond Ranch, whether it was Charter Oak, whether it was Damien, those 4 times they wanted to play him. It's been St. Francis on different occasions. I've seen Muir want to do it. None of those teams the last 20 years that I watched have ever beaten Bishop Amat. One team has, and they weren't an area team, but I'm going to mention them because the one team I remember beating Bishop Amat was Chino Hills. And you know who coached that Chino Hills team, James?
Some guy by the name of Matt Bechtel, I believe.
Matt Bechtel. So if you're talking about who's done it, maybe Damien hasn't done it for 19 years, but Matt Bechtel has. Again, adds to this intrigue on Friday night.
For me, Freddie, the matchups are so intriguing, but the most intriguing matchup is the quarterbacks with Tobin Odell and Dylan Gutierrez. These are not, average quarterbacks, Freddie. They're pretty darn good.
Yeah, and again, I watched Bishop Amat in the Bosco game and the Servite game. They could do nothing offensively. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. Their defense was just overwhelmed. That's why I say you throw those games away and you look at what Odell has done against La Habra. You look at what he done against Lusinger. Those are 2 pretty good teams. They've got Aiden Ramos back. They didn't even have him in that first game. And he's a junior running back. He's fantastic. They didn't have him in the first 2 games. He wasn't even there when they lost to St. John Bosco. He's back now. He is a load to handle. And so both teams, to me, Dylan Gutierrez, they've been able to score points against really good teams, defensive teams like St. Francis. They've been able to score at will. I thought against Loyola, although they didn't score enough, they dominated that game. They were able to put up points against Orange Lutheran. They were able to put up points, obviously, against Oaks Christian. They can score the ball. I think both of these offenses, James, are very similar. It's who's going to be able to match the other team score for score. I think that's what you're going to have to look for. I don't think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think both of these offenses are just a little bit better. And it's who's going to be able to match the other one on Friday night.
Dylan Gutierrez passed for 348 against Orange Lutheran 2 weeks ago. That's pretty good. And I think when I talked to Matt Bechtel after the game, that was the one thing he was encouraged by, the fact that he grew up that night, that he took his game to that level that he thinks he's at, so to speak.
Yeah.
And don't forget about that running back at Damien too, Stephen Chavez, freshman. You really like him.
He's a freshman, James. Jaden Moss, who's a sophomore, he's the other running back. They both sort of put up similar numbers. Aiden Gutierrez is their leading receiver. He's just a sophomore. Yeah. Like we mentioned, Dylan, he's a junior. These are all super talented underclassmen. If Damien doesn't get him now, they probably get Amat next year when they're at home, when those guys grow up a little bit more. Bishop Amat, Aiden Ramos is also a junior. Delano Franklin, their great receiver, he's a junior. Tobin Odell is the senior quarterback. I think
he's got quarterbacks in that farm system that are pretty good.
What's that? Yeah. Oh, they do.
I believe. I mean, again, it's careful to pay too much attention on social media, but apparently in the farm system, Bishop Mott's got some good quarterbacks at that position.
Yeah, and I think they've got some young guys coming up too they're going to be good. And then we're going to see, what both of these teams are going to get is transfers in the offseason that, obviously is going to change the landscape as we go into next year. But let's just throw next year aside right now. We're talking about Friday. Who do we think is going to win and why? Right, James? That's going to be ultimately that's going to be the big question. And before I go there, I'm just going to say nobody wants to lose this game. These teams cannot stand each other. Okay,
they can't. Is that what you mentioned last week? From A to Z, there's nothing in between that these schools like about each other.
You've seen them on social media kind of nitpick each other. All roads lead to Damien. No, all roads lead to Bishop Amat. You've seen them kind of poke fun at each other. In the background, nobody wants to lose this game because they know Friday night when they go on social media what's going to be coming at them. You just don't. It's going to be a tone setter for the rest of league. Trust you me. This is a game nobody's going to want to lose. Now, who's going to win?
Yeah, Freddie, who is going to win? I haven't. First off, I am.
You
not
want to pick first, or you want me to pick first?
I'm not going to hold back on the line here. I've made Bishop Amat -6, money line -170 over Damien. So go ahead.
So are you picking Bishop Amat?
I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, I'm taking Bishop Amat. And I know I have Damien #1 in our rankings because they deserve the #1 spot based on what they've done. Every game they've played this year, they've won 2 really good games. They were super competitive in those other 2 games. However, Bishop Amat's 2 losses, those teams beat anyone like that, James, in our area. I think they beat Damien by the same margin. I think Bishop Amat is going to be better than anyone that Damien has faced. I think they're better than Orange Lutheran. At the end of the day, I think they are. They're better than Oaks Christian, who's 0-5. They're better than St. Francis. They're better than Loyola. And look, all those, except for St. Francis, were pretty close games. I think you're going to see the magic of Kiefer come out. And there's a reason historically Bishop Amat is 23-4-1. I think that time is going to come for Damien, James. I don't think it's going to come on Friday. I think all the pressure is on Bishop Amat, though, too. I think for Damien, they win and they get to scream and go crazy on social media. We beat you. I think for Bishop Amat, you've got to grab the shield now. You've got to stand up, and you got to defend your tradition on Friday night because they're coming after you on your field. You do not want Damien running to the middle of that field and celebrating and going crazy in front of the crowd that you're going to see on Friday night. This is going to be the biggest crowd, non-playoff game, playoff game. This is going to be the biggest crowd that we've seen in a long time. And I think that electricity at Kiefer is going to bring Bishop Amat up. And we talked about why. I think Amat's offense is going to be able to score more at will than Damien's offense will against Bishop Amat. I think it's as simple as that. I don't think they're going to stop Aiden Ramos all night. I don't think, Tobin Odell can run the ball and throw the ball. Delano Franklin. I think Bishop Amat has been in more of these big games, James. This is what they're built for. This is why they're Bishop Amat. This is why historically I've always seen these games and they don't lose these games. Damien's right there, though. They can beat him. Damien's hungry. They've circled this game on the calendar since Matt Bechtel took over, and they haven't played like we've said since almost 8 or 9 years. But at the end of the day, after having thought about it over the weekend, and the way Bishop Amat put away losing her really convinced me, because it just shows me against some of these teams that aren't the top 5 ranked teams in the country, Bishop Amat is Bishop Amat, and they're going to beat Damien on Friday night.
I think Luzier came at the right time. One thing to remember too, Freddie, with Damien, they almost lost had it not been for a very catchable pass on 4th down late in the game against Oaks Christian. And it's on video, folks. You can watch it and see it for yourself. If that kid from Oaks Christian catches the ball, we may not be talking about this week in such a great, and in such a big fashion, so to speak, because
those are ifs and buts. That's why I say in Bishop Amat's 2 wins, they were over by halftime. Against Lafayette and against losing her, they haven't escaped a game. Damien is 2-2. They could very well, like you said, be 1-3. They played a really good schedule though. Yeah. They could have beaten Loyola, so they could be 3-1. They could be on the flip side too. I just think
Bishop Amat Orange Lutheran now. Let's just not beat around the bush. They had the lead on Orange Lutheran with 2 minutes left in the game, and their defense couldn't make a stop.
Yeah, so, you're right. They could be 4-0. They could be undefeated in that schedule too. I just think Bishop Amat would have been 4-0, or possibly could have been 4-0 against that same schedule, James. And they were, except for the St. Francis game, they were all close. And look, before you get into your predictions, you mentioned Damien 19 and Bishop Amat 22 in the CalPreps projections. When you project, whatever happens the rest of the way here, these are going to be teams that are going to be I think they're either going to be the bottom half of Division II or the top half of Division III. Yeah. Some of them are going to go into league, and there's, I think they're both going to be really competitive. Damien's going to go in there and battle Rancho Cucamonga, Etowanda,
Upland.
and then it's Damien. Those 4 teams are going to battle for 3 at-large spots. Really, really super competitive. Bishop Amat in the same boat. They're going to go in the Mission League after this. And you got Alameda, and you got Chaminade, who you're probably the
Notre Dame
betting favorites right now. And then for that 3rd and 4th spot, if you're guessing it, it's probably Sarah and Bishop Amat. And I think Bishop Amat beats Notre Dame and Cathedral. So there's a chance both of them can go 3-2 in league. They can go 4-1, they can go 2-3. But at the end of the day, I think no matter what, even if they didn't get in that an automatic qualifier, they're probably at large teams that will get those automatic qualifiers. The reason this game is big though, James, is because whoever loses falls to 2-3, and then you got to get those 3 wins in league because you got to get to 500 no matter what. So the loser, the pressure's on in terms of what you have to do in league to make sure you get in the playoffs. So big implications that way.
I agree.
James?
I do like Bishop Amat too, Freddie, but I think this game's going to be close. And I made the line 6, but that doesn't mean I think the line is going to, it's going to be 7 or 14 points. One thing about Damien, and I just want everyone to keep in mind here, they passed the ball prolifically well against Orange Lutheran. Last week, they ran the ball really well against Oaks Christian. So if you're Bishop Amat, that's trouble, so to speak, because now you've got to, they're not a one-dimensional animal, so to speak. They can run and they can throw the ball. So, but I have really major issues with the back half of the Damien secondary. They were exploited time and again. They gave up an 80-yard touchdown on 3rd and 15. I believe it was in the second quarter against Oaks Christian when they brought a safety blitz in for heaven knows why. I don't know why. And they just get exploited for these big plays every time. And I just don't trust the secondary, Freddie. I don't. And I just think at the end of the day, Bishop Amat has been in these type of games. They know what it's like. That staff know what it's like to play in these big games. I don't know if Damien has.
Yeah. I think those lines up front too are very, very similar. That's what's going to be really.
Oh yeah, there's no advantage there, Freddie. They're both very similar.
Yeah, and as great as Steve Chavez has been, and the other sophomore, I just think Aiden Ramos is going to be the difference maker because I think he's built for a game like this. I've seen him do it, a couple of years ago in 2019. Come on and be able to do it against pretty good teams. I just think he's going to be the different. I don't know if they're going to be able to slow him down on a consistent basis. I think they're going to be Bishop Amat is going to be able to run the ball better than Damien can. Now, Steve Chavez has been great, but remember, he is just a freshman, and he hasn't run for 200-yard games or 250-yard games. Aiden Ramos has that capability. He can run for 175 yards on Friday night, and they can throw the ball. And again, this game is at Kiefer. This is the Hunger Game, James. We call it the Hunger Games. This is the Hunger Game. Who wants it more? You know what you're not going to see this week? I bet you're not going to see Damien videos this week.
I would hope
not. You're not going to see Matt Villanueva over at Bishop Amat tweeting this week. I bet the social medias are going to be really quiet. They do not want to feed into this and give either team any reason to get more fired up than they already are. We're going to do that for them. That's why we're here. We're going to be talking a lot of smack on there. We're going to be putting the pressure on both of these teams, building this up all week. It's the Hunger Game, Jim.
Yeah.
James, who wants it more?
You know what?
2021.
And you know what, folks? You know how big this game is? We're both going to be there Friday night.
Yes, we are.
Now, it sounds like I'm going to do the game story, which will appear in the game in the paper Saturday, and then Freddie's going to do a special column about the game on Sunday that will appear in the Sunday paper. So we'll have it all covered. Freddie's going to do, I believe we're going to do video.
The best way to
Freddie, I made a call here, Freddie. I made a call. I'm going to try to get home in time Friday night. We'll do a special Twitter Spaces, just me and you. We'll talk about the game, some of the other games in the Valley that night. We're going to do it. We'll talk about the game. Hopefully we'll get a few people who are at the game to get their opinions about it and everything else. But I think it's about time we do something like this, so to speak. We don't do Twitter Spaces as much as maybe some of the other guys do, but for this particular night, I think we'll do it, Freddie. So I'll rush home as soon as the story is filed, and then we'll talk about it. But it's a big night, Freddie, and I think this is our game. This is our game. This is the Valley's game. This is not, sorry, Eric Sonheimer, you can go to Orange County. This is our game. And I hope the fans really appreciate what Friday night's going to be all about.
When you say ours, you're saying the San Gabriel Valley. And that's what it is.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's going to be a madhouse on Friday night. Look, Damien likes to tailgate their home games. They've had great crowds all year. They're all going to show up at Kiefer on Friday night.
Where are you going to have dinner at, pal?
There's going to be tailgating all up and down.
Are you going to eat one of those tailgaters, by the way? Is that what your plan is here?
No, I mean, I may walk through there just to take some videos, just to see what people, just to hear the smack talk.
You're going to be offered food. You know that. You know you're going to be offered food.
Yeah. I'm not, I won't take any of the beverages, though. I won't take any of the beverages. That I can promise you. It's just, it's great to have. And the reason both of us are going to be there at the game, I think it's great. We can give a lot of video. We can cover that game. We can give it the coverage it deserves. Fortunately, we do have some other big games like you mentioned San Dimas Bonita. We'll have that covered. We have Glendora, but it's really a night where a lot of other teams are off or taking their bye weeks that we normally cover. So and there's some big games on Thursday night, like we got Charter Oak and
West Covina
playing on Thursday night. The stars really lined up for this to be a special event on Friday night. So why not give it all the coverage it deserves? I may even talk Tommy Kiss into coming out and doing a special all exclusive Inland Insider Tommy Kiss video on the game. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I know there's a lot of people that want to go, that have been talking about this game. It is going to be a madhouse, James, on Friday night.
I guarantee you.
It's amazing
our
that
premier photographer, the one and only Keith Birmingham.
Yeah, he's got to be there Friday night. Yeah,
it's when it's a big game when KB is on the scene.
Yeah, it's going to be.
We do. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's going to be magic on Friday night, and
I'll tell you what's also magical, Freddie. 10:30 between 10:30 11 is the Friday evening wrap.
Friday evening wrap. Yeah. I hope I have time to do all that with spaces and putting stories up on board and grabbing scores. James, you can't surprise me like that. I don't know what my night's going to be.
I'm going to throw it up there. If you want to join me, that's fine.
You got to remember when the games end, my games begin.
I agree with you. Yeah. No. You can always come in later on.
We'll see.
Pop it up and we'll talk about.
I've loved. There's been some spaces at night, and I've gone on them. The tough part for me is, there's just so much to do when a game is over. When you're the editor of one of the areas, because you've got to read stories and put them up. You got to get the website set. You got to track down scores.
Well, like I said, I'll start it. You can come in anytime you want, Freddie, and then we'll just go from there. We'll talk about some of the big, because there are other big games, but we really want to, we'll let the fans kind of have some fun with it a little bit, and get their opinions on the game. When you're done putting up the Friday evening wrap, we'll take you for a few minutes and talk about it, and then we'll kind of even tease the games next week, so to speak. But I'll tell you a spaces that's more preferable to me. That's could kind of be fun. I'd like to do a pregame spaces. That could be possible. I could easily be possible.
Just 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll even go live, just do a video live from the game, where it's just you and me.
I think that would be a good idea.
We got the whole week to figure it out. It's a big week. At the end of the day, Bishop Amat is going to win.
I think so too.
I didn't think so. If you asked me the week before, the way they lost to Servite, I would have said no. I think the way they bounced back and against losing her, and the key to me is they're healthy. They didn't lose anybody in those two games.
Right.
I'm really looking at their 2 wins versus the 4 games at Damien, and it's at Kiefer. I like them. They're going to win, James. It's going to be a great game.
What's dangerous too, if you're part of that Damien coaching staff, I wouldn't watch a minute of the games against Bosco and Servite, because you don't have the talent that those teams do on the field. Those teams give you false illusions. You need to watch the La Habra tape, and you need to watch the Lusinger tape. If you spend more than 5 minutes watching Servite and Bosco, you wasted your time, in my opinion, because again, the talent that those teams have, you don't have.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, you said, you've seen Oaks Christian, who's 0-5, scored 23 points against them. You've seen Orange Lutheran score, put a lot of points against them. The Loyola
Couldn't
game
get off the
was,
field. Defense couldn't get off the field to win a game
yeah. Then now,
against
now,
Oregon.
now,
That's
granted,
trouble for me.
I do like Damien's defense. They have, that first game against Loyola, I thought their defense was great. Their defense shut down St. Francis. It really did. They were competitive defensively in the last two games. I mean, it's not, they have a good defense. Do they have a great defense? They have, I just think Bishop Amat is going to be too much for them. And I think it's going to be who's going to be able to match the other offense score for score. Obviously, turnovers are the Achilles heel for either one of these teams. I think if any one of them, if there's a +2 margin in turnovers for anyone, that's going to sway the tide, James. And those are things you can never predict. Who knows? I think you've got to take care of the ball on Friday night. You cannot give these other teams freebies if you're going to win this game. So I'm saying if there's a mistake-free game on both sides, then I like Bishop Amat for sure.
One other hope here. Let's hope the officials let these teams play and not call 25 penalties in the game Friday night, because, we want to see the best team win here. We don't need, holding penalties like 20 times on Friday night. Let's let these kids play and let it have a flow to the game and let the kids decide at the end of the night who the best team is. So we got a lot coming at you this week, folks. You know where we stand. We want to know where you stand. So to make sure you're on Twitter, let us know what your opinion is. Again, I've made Bishop Amat -6 plus 170 on the money line on the game. That doesn't mean I'm going to take Damien +6. I just made the line, so to speak. You understand why I did it too, Freddie, because I think
you're looking at the keeper factor. You're looking at the keeper factor.
There is a keeper factor to, don't you agree?
Yeah. And here's one thing that people don't realize when they come into Kiefer, and this is going to be my last thought.
Please do.
Is they play all of their games on the turf. And you go in and you play on the grass. Your cuts are a little different when you're running. Those little shifts are a little different. Even on the line, it's a little different. Bishop Amat they're playing 7 games at home this year,
that's crazy.
A lot of home games. But they practice on grass. They play more. They're half their games on grass. These teams come in here. This is probably maybe one time all year they play in a natural grass surface. They don't practice on grass. I'll be curious. I wonder if Damien practices on grass this week if they go out to the baseball field. It does give them a little advantage. That's sort of that special home field advantage that you get because you're playing on a surface that other teams never play on or practice on all year. And I think that does make a difference, James. I really do.
It's a great point. I didn't think about that, Freddie. That is an awesome point that you've made. So, folks, we've given you a lot. We've thrown a lot out there at you, so to speak. We're both taking Bishop Amat here Friday night. We hope to see you at the game, everybody. And if you do pull us over, we don't mind talking to you guys. You're the reason why we love doing this.
Wear a face mask if you pull us over.
Exactly. I've got mine right here. Here it is.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Hey, here it is. Here's my mask right here, my N95, so to speak. But again, Friday night, Bishop Amat is hosting Damien, 7 o'clock.
We'll see you guys there.
We'll see you guys there. I promise you, folks, we're going to make it happen. We'll do a video from the field at 6 o'clock. But if it has to be on my cell phone, we'll do it. And then after the game is over, make sure you join me for a special edition of the 2-minute draw on Spaces. And we'll talk about the game and some of the other games from the area that night. So for Freddie, I'm James. Until next time, or until Friday night at Kiefer, it's sayonara for now.
See you later.